Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the PhD Life Coach. When I was an academic, I spent a lot of time in student support type activities. So I was a full academic, I had a teaching and I had a research load for quite a lot of my career. But alongside that, I did a lot of supervision. I was welfare tutor, I led on postgrad training and things like that. And I was also a coach for academics, did a lot of mentoring and staff development on that side of things too. And one of the things that we really struggled with for years and years was people not accessing help when they needed it. So we knew that the PhD students would really benefit from loads of the training programs that were available at the university, the staff as well, but they were really reluctant to seek that sort of help. And looking back, I think one of the things we did wrong, and that I see a lot of universities doing wrong, is we responded to this by putting on more and more services. There was more and more training opportunities. There were more and more things there for people to access. And we upped the comms, we made sure there was emails going out, made sure there was really good awareness of what there was going around in the university. But people rarely stopped to think much more deeply about why people weren't accessing these services in the first place. Sometimes we thought about the accessibility of it, particularly making sure that things were available during working hours, that people were relieved from their work in order to be able to do it, that things were free and accessible and all those sorts of practical things. But what we never really talked about was what beliefs do PhD students and academics have about seeking help that are barriers to them engaging with this sort of help. And so that's what we're going to think about today, is what beliefs do we need to develop in ourselves or remind ourselves, if we already believe them, that will make it more likely that we'll seek help when we need it. And we're focusing on that more positive side. We're not thinking about what thoughts are a barrier. We're thinking about what thoughts can I try and cultivate? What thoughts can I try and pay more attention to make it more likely that I will seek and get the help I need. And so today is a bunch of thoughts that you might want to hang on to. Some of them you might already be thinking. Some of them you might feel like you completely disagree with. Let's go. You can always let me know in the comments what you think. So the first one is really fundamental to this, is it's okay to have a problem. Often, if people are struggling with something, they make it mean something intrinsic about them. They make it mean that they're not good enough to be doing their PhD and someone will find out. That whole imposter syndrome thing that we talked about a couple of episodes ago. I remember having a senior member of staff say to me when I was relatively junior, I'm just not sure you're coping at the moment. And I was mortified. Absolutely mortified. The truth was, he was right. I was absolutely drowning in about 4 million different things. But I was so embarrassed that he had said this, and I made it mean something about me. I made it mean that he was telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't cope in this environment. But when we can normalize that it's okay to have a problem, that everybody needs to seek support at some point, suddenly it becomes a lot easier, because seeking support doesn't mean admitting to some weakness or failing in yourself. It just means that now's a time that you need some outside input, whether that's from a practical point of view, an emotional point of view, or whatever it might need to be. So we need to remind ourselves that it's okay to have a problem. Linked to that is it's okay to need help to solve that problem. Sometimes people think it's okay to have a problem, but only if they solve it entirely themselves. When I was a welfare tutor, I used to beg students to access wellbeing services, but like, no, I think I'm doing okay. I think I can work through this. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. It's not a problem to need somebody to help you solve a problem. People have different skills, people have different experiences. Sometimes they're not even any better at it than you, they're just somebody other than you. So they can look at your brain from the outside. Same as you can help other people who aren't even better at it than you can help you, just because it's not their mess. It's like, have you ever been around to somebody's house and help them tidy up? So much easier to clear up somebody else's house because you've got no sort of shame or anything like that attached to the mess. You can just help them clear it up. Whereas when we try and clear up our own houses, it's all mixed up in I should have done this before. Oh, I'm so lazy. I should be better, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Somebody else's problems, infinitely easier to solve and give ideas for. So we need to believe that it's okay to have a problem and it's okay to need somebody else to help. None of those things mean anything about us and our abilities. I see that just from the range of people I coach. You know, if you're a PhD student listening to this, I coach people like your supervisor. I coach people like your boss. And all of those people have the same sorts of problems and have the same sorts of challenges every day. It's literally amazing the parallels there are between first-year PhD students and senior academics in terms of the stuff we coach on. It's all the same stuff. We also have to believe that we have the capacity to seek help. So one of the things I see most regularly is people saying that they haven't got time to access coaching. They haven't got time to go on a workshop to help them with something. And it reminds me a lot of a book that I read. It's a very cheesy self-help book, so please forgive me. But one of the chapters in it really stuck with me. It's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the final chapter is about sharpening the saw. So the 7th habit is what's called sharpen the saw. And that's a story of a man who was cutting down a tree, and he had a very blunt saw that he was using to cut down the tree. And somebody walked past and saw he was using a blunt saw and said, why don't you take a moment and just sharpen your saw, because it will go so much faster. And he said, I can't, I need to finish cutting down this tree. So he kept on going. He didn't take that time to sharpen his saw. And I think a very similar analogy is true for seeking help. If you tell yourself you haven't got time to seek help, chances are everything else is going to take longer and you are going to end up with less time. We always can have time to seek help if we choose to put it to the top of the list. And so often seeking help will speed up everything else that we have to do. So we need to believe that we have the capacity and the time to seek help. We also need to believe that other people seek help. Again, one of the things I used to tell my students who have big personal issues a lot was that other people used extensions. Sometimes we have this narrative that students get extensions all over the place, and they try and lie about their granny dying in order to get an extension. In my experience, the exact opposite was the truth. The people that had serious things going on didn't want any special treatment. They didn't believe that other people accessed that help, and they thought therefore that they shouldn't. We need to believe, and I want to try and convince you, that other people seek help. Other people go to those workshops to try and write more effectively. Other people go to time management workshops. Other people access wellbeing services. Other people get coaching. I know because I've been on both sides of it. I've supported people through it. I've delivered it. I've received it myself. Other people seek help. You're not going to be a strange special unicorn if you go and seek help. People are using this help all the time, and you can access it too. The other thing we need to believe is that a problem can be solved, or at least that a problem can be improved. And this can be sometimes hard to believe, because when we don't really understand what a solution could be or how much just some support with a problem can help, then we often tell ourselves, well, there's no point. I see it with academics quite a lot. So people I interact with on Twitter quite regularly will say, well, you can't take my workload away, so I don't really see the point in coaching. I have too much to do. That's what's causing my stress. And so I don't really see the point. And what it really underestimates is how much it can help with other things, even in the absence of reducing your actual workload. How can we make your workload feel less? How can we get your workload so that it can go through faster, more efficiently? How can we make it so that you're not beating yourself up while you do it? When we believe that a problem can't be solved, we then don't seek help that could help us solve it in ways we hadn't even anticipated. One extra tip I would add to this is that a specific problem can be solved. So if you're ever accessing support and you want to go and ask somebody for help, the more specific you can be about what the problem is, the far easier it is for them to help you. So if you go to somebody and say, I'm really rubbish at writing, then that can be a bit of a struggle to help you with. We might be able to refer you to particular courses, but it's very hard to help with very large generalized problems like that. However, if you say, I'm struggling with writing because I don't know where to start on my first drafts, or I struggle with writing because I can get my first draft all down, but then I'm not very good at editing and I don't really understand what the process is, suddenly so much easier to help you. So a problem can be solved. I want you to remind yourself, any problem can be solved or can be made easier. Let's not go as far as solve necessarily, but any problem can be improved, and a specific problem can be improved the easiest. Another thing that we need to believe is that there's a range of people who might be able to support us. Often people believe that it has to be their supervisor who helps them. If they're a PhD student, it has to be your principal investigator. If you're a postdoc, it has to be your head of school. If you're an academic, and so on. And if that person isn't somebody that you're willing to talk to, often you can feel like there's no one who'll help you. If it's somebody who you don't feel like has the skills. So one thing I see quite a lot in my PhD coaching program is students whose research has kind of developed in a particular direction that means it's not necessarily right in the core expertise of their supervisor. And they feel a bit lost that they're suddenly doing qualitative research and their supervisor isn't a qualitative researcher, and they don't have, in their words, anyone to help them. I want you to believe that there are a whole range of people that can support you. Look around your department. Who else is there in your department who has those specific skills? And it goes back to that specific problem. The more you can get it to a really specific problem, the easier it is to find the right person. There might be peers who have done this before. There might be people who are more senior to you who have done this before. There might be specific courses on that particular thing. You might be able to access people from different universities. You might be able to approach people on social media to give advice on particular topics. There's a whole range of people and a whole range of ways that you can access help. And remember, help doesn't have to be one-to-one talking with somebody. Help can be finding the right article that will push you in the right direction, a book, an online course. All these different types of things are sources of help available to you. And the more you can believe that someone somewhere will be able to help me with this, and that it's perfectly valid to seek help from other people, the easier it is to access that help. You also need to believe that you can explain what the problem is. Now, I've said that you need to be specific about your problem. Sometimes it's not that straightforward. Sometimes it's hard to explain exactly what's wrong. And so we need to encourage ourselves that we can figure out what the story is. We can spend some time thinking through, okay, what is the problem? I know it feels like everything's terrible at the moment, but I can help myself to work it through. I can talk it through with somebody I love and figure out what's the specific problem here. And once I've got it, once I've figured that out, it will be so much easier to explain to somebody else. And then when I explain it to somebody else, I can maybe take, a few notes with me of the key things that I want to make sure that I say. We can learn how to explain the problem to somebody else. Sometimes people are really worried about, I just won't explain it right. It always sounds silly when I say it out loud. And those are the thoughts, again, that we can work on. We can explain this in a way that somebody will understand. We need to believe that the person that we're speaking to won't judge us. Or at minimum, we need to believe that if they do judge us, it doesn't matter. And this is a really important one. There's a ton of research that shows that people are less likely to seek support for mental health problems because of stigma and a fear of judgment from the people that they're seeking help from. So if you believe that people will judge you for seeking whatever sort of support you might need, then we need to start building little bridges as to how we can move you towards believing that that will be okay. One, I would encourage you to think is not everyone will judge me for this. Somebody won't judge me for this. And that kind of encourages us away from the all or nothing thinking that I was talking about in last week's podcast, and towards this idea that, maybe some people will judge you. And maybe we'll be able to guess that in advance and avoid talking to those people. Maybe we won't, but maybe we'll end up getting judged, but that's okay. We can look after ourselves. Or maybe we can figure out who we think is our best chance of somebody not judging us. Often, if it's specifically within their role to support you, they're much less likely to judge you. If they have specific expertise in the area that you're interested in, they're much less likely to judge you. And the key to remember here is that all of this time that you're not seeking help because somebody might judge you, you're judging yourself. You're judging yourself as not important enough to seek help, not deserving of that help. So let's stop judging ourselves, stop making assumptions about who will judge us, and figure out who's the person who's least likely to judge us, that I feel most comfortable talking to, and see if we can talk to them. Another thought that I want you to cultivate is that it is never too early or too late to ask for help. Sometimes people say, oh, well, I'll just give it a bit more time, see if I can figure it out. And that can sound super independent, and it can sound like, really problem solving. But sometimes it is just you procrastinating, being a little bit vulnerable, where actually if you seek support earlier on, then it may be that you can nip problems in the bud before they get any bigger. Similarly, other people say, it's too late to seek support now. I'm graduating in 6 months, or I'm leaving my job at the university in 2 months' time. It's no point seeking support now. It is never too early and it is never too late to seek help. At minimum, they can help you in the immediate time, and they can help you for things in the future. You can learn stuff that will help you with parallel issues that you may experience in the future. It's never too early. It's never too late. And that's kind of related to another point that I wanted to make, is that we seem to fetishize in our society people solving things for themselves. That's that independence is king. So often people are reluctant to ask for help because they're determined to sort it out for themselves. And I want to remind you that asking for help doesn't mean you wouldn't have worked it out. People sometimes think you only ask for help when you're sure you won't work it out yourself. Sometimes, why not ask for help as you go along? Why not ask for help as a confirmatory thing? I think I would do this. What do you think? This is the solution I've come up with so far, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So if you're somebody who really worries you should be more self-sufficient and solve problems for yourself, ask for help by telling them what you're thinking you're going to do and get their opinion on that. That way you're helping yourself, but you're also allowing others to give you input, so you will develop further and faster. I have 2 more points, and these are probably the 2 most important thoughts for you to cultivate. The first one is that seeking help is self-reliance. We've built this thing where people have to be independent, they have to look after themselves, and that's what we respect, and that's what we want to be able to do. But seeking help is part of supporting yourself. Seeking help doesn't make you weaker. Seeking help is you building a scaffold around yourself in order to support yourself to grow. Seeking help, generating the thoughts and beliefs in your mind that you need to in order to seek that help, is part of self-reliance. It's knowing yourself. It's knowing the specific challenges that you're experiencing and the specific people who might be able to help, and taking those and putting them in place so that you can create this nurturing space that are going to help you become everything that you want to be. Seeking help is self-reliance. And finally, and this one is probably the hardest of all for some people, and that is that you deserve help. Sometimes people just don't believe that they deserve help. They believe they should be able to do this themselves, and they believe that other people are busy, they haven't got time to help me. You deserve help. Whether you're a PhD student or a full professor or anything in between, you are doing something really hard. There is no way in the world that you should be trying to do this without appropriate mental health support, without appropriate coaching, and without the sort of specialist, whether it's life skills or research skills training that you need. This is hard. You deserve help. Please, if you believe nothing else, please believe that you deserve help. This final thought, that you deserve help, is the most important to cultivate if some of the others didn't feel true to you today. So if when I said that it's okay to have a problem and that people won't judge you, if those things don't feel true to you, if you feel like you shouldn't have this problem, you should be better than that, you shouldn't need support, but other people probably will judge you, that's okay. You've probably had experiences in the past that have reinforced that. And now by keep thinking that thought, you're reinforcing all those memories. So it's okay if you're finding those ones hard to believe. But please start from you deserve help. Even if you think there's no one that can help you, even if you think your problems can't be solved, please believe that you deserve help and use that to help you take the tiny stepping stones towards getting the support that you deserve. I hope that's helpful. I would love to hear if any of you reach out for support from anybody at all on the basis of listening to this episode. It's so important. Thank you all for listening, and see you next week.